You are an evolutionary empath. The world needs your gifts. Hello, sensitive souls, and welcome to my Evolutionary Empath podcast. I'm Stephanie Redfeather, author of the upcoming book, The Evolutionary Empath, a practical guide for heart-centered consciousness, which hits shelves on November 5th. You can pre-order a copy now on my website at bluestartemple.org or through your favorite bookseller. If you go to my website, be sure to download your free copy of my Evolutionary Empath Activation Manual and check out my products as well. So let's check in on last week's self-care tip. How did your sacred bath practice go? Did you do anything different or out of the norm for you? What did you do to make it sacred? What kinds of goodies did you add? If you don't like baths, did you try filling up the bathtub while you showered? What was your experience like? I'd love to read about how it went for you on my Facebook page if you'd like to share. Baths have been my binky this week. In fact, I took a long one this morning with Epsom salts, baking powder, and a bunch of oils, frankincense, lavender, rose, jasmine, and Young Living's purification oil. Oh, it was absolutely delightful. For me, baths are an opportunity to still myself, slow down my biorhythms, and slip into a meditative state, which has been so nourishing for me lately. I hope you found your bath practice to be nurturing. Don't forget, listen at the end for today's new self-care tip of the week. Today, I want to introduce the concept of being heart-centered and provide a context of how humanity is in the process of collectively shifting from third chakra to fourth chakra consciousness. I believe that as empaths, we are here to help usher heart-centered consciousness onto the planet. It is the subtitle of my book, actually, The Evolutionary Empath, a practical guide for heart-centered consciousness. Plus, I will take you through a short guided visualization to experience your heart center. As empaths, we are groundbreakers. You are a pioneer. To put things in perspective, consider what life was like even 100 years ago or so. Just from a physical standpoint alone, scratching out a meaningful existence was incredibly hard and consumed much of one's daily activities. Most people did not have electricity. Penicillin had yet to be discovered. Cars were considered a luxury until the 1920s. In 1900, every third child died before the age of 5. Refrigerators weren't introduced into the home until the 1930s. So people still struggled to harvest or slaughter enough food to last them through the winter. So you can imagine the practical work of carving out a life, feeding the children, and keeping a roof overhead took almost every ounce of mental and physical effort. Consider Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. The lowest level of the pyramid represents our basic human needs. His theory states that one must satisfy lower-level deficit needs first, before progressing on to meet higher-level growth needs. For so long, humanity was motivated by basic-level survival needs. 100 years ago, human consciousness was still very self-focused, very tactical in view, meaning small picture as opposed to big picture. As a species, we were not evolved enough. Had not awakened in consciousness enough yet for empaths to survive in the world on a larger scale. There wasn't much room in the world paradigm for people with our perceptions and sensitivities. Empaths would have been eaten alive. Even in the early 1900s, only a small number of incredibly brave souls would choose to come into the world. Very few like us were incarnating in previous centuries. Early empaths, even into the first half of the 20th century, were generally tolerated as eccentric at best or outcast at worst. How many sensitive souls do you think dealt with the harshness of reality by self-medicating, falling into addiction, constructing complicated coping mechanisms, or living in a fantasy world. How many empaths in those early years were deeply depressed or anxious, chalked up as being crazy, relegated to the fringes of society, or put in asylums or mental institutions? How many empaths were misunderstood, ostracized, made fun of, or even killed because of their sensitivities? Stop for just a moment and contemplate how your life would be different as an empath if you were alive just 100 years ago. What coping mechanisms would you have to put in place? What decisions might you have been forced to make? Would you have had the same opportunities as you do now? How would you have been judged? What would you have to do to get by? It makes you take pause, doesn't it? I know I probably would have been cuckoo. I would have been the crazy lady or locked up in a sanatorium. It is challenging enough to cope right now in present day. I honestly think I would have lost my mind as an empath a century ago. To give some context to this idea of moving from third chakra to fourth chakra consciousness, I want to introduce you to some concepts put forth by Anna Dea Judith, best-selling author, activist, workshop leader, and speaker. She is an expert on the chakra system. And in her book, The Global Heart Awakens, she says, quote, "We're now at the threshold of the global heart, the era of planetary adulthood. We have been slowly emerging into the fourth chakra with the advent of rational philosophy, human rights, women's rights, democracy, and a spiritual revolution that is moving beyond dogma toward compassion, higher wisdom, and personal connection with the divine. I argue, however, that we're now suffering from a syndrome of arrested development in our journey to the heart. Parts of our collective psyche are moving forward, while other aspects remain trapped in the egoic third chakra's love of power." Unquote. For those not familiar with the chakra system, the third chakra is the place of personal will and personal power. In her earlier work, Anna Dea superimposed the human developmental stages onto the chakra system. It is a brilliant correlation. So in an individual, developmental markers of the third chakra include self-definition, the formation of the ego, and establishing autonomy. In this level of development, individual identity motivates decisions and reactions. Other themes of the third chakra include self-esteem, strength, energy, vitality, focus, discipline, freedom, and purpose. Now enlarge and adapt this template onto the whole of humanity. And you can see that we have been experimenting with asserting our will and power in all of its forms and expressions for centuries. In third chakra consciousness, people are trying to individuate and assert their will. Collectively, we've been doing the same thing. Look at how humans operate in group mind as a country, as a religion, as a political group, as a community. We become territorial, defensive, warring. We take things personally, feel threatened, don't trust others. We fixate on how we are different instead of focusing on our common goals. Anna Dea says that our collective initiation from the love of power, third chakra, to the power of love, fourth chakra, is the drama of our time. Let me say that quote again because I think it is so right on. Our collective initiation from the love of power to the power of love is the drama of our time. This is where empaths come in. We are the forerunners of heart chakra consciousness, coming into this world with huge open hearts, refined sensitivities, and a strong desire for harmony and cooperation. We are a catalyzing force in humanity's journey toward heart-centered consciousness. Fourth chakra, or heart-centered consciousness, is about compassion, empathy, love, self-love, altruism, collaboration, peace, self-acceptance, community, intimacy, cooperation, self-reflection, and creating relationships and partnerships. The heart chakra is the center of the traditional chakra system, so it is the natural home for balancing opposites. Our heart is the alchemical nuclei that can balance and integrate the split between heaven and earth, masculine and feminine, mind and body. On that note, I'd like to offer you a short guided meditation to drop more fully into your heart space. In our busy Western world, so much emphasis is placed on the mind and so little on the heart. You might have heard the saying that the longest journey we will ever make is from the head to the heart. For this experience, find a comfortable, quiet place where you won't be disturbed. Take 3 deep breaths, breathing in through the bottoms of your feet up to the top of your head, and exhaling from the crown to the ground. Make noise if that would feel good to you. And do this 2 more times. Now, I want you to imagine your consciousness as a ball of light. Where is it right now in your body? It might be in your head, but could be anywhere in your body or energy field. Locate the ball of light that represents your consciousness. Good. Now, wherever it is, move it slowly to your heart space. It will be much like trying on a new pair of glasses or traveling in a glass elevator where the view changes slightly as you move. Once your consciousness is in your heart, pause there. Take another deep breath. Allow yourself to fully inhabit your heart space. What do you notice? Does it feel awkward or comfortable? Foreign or familiar? Pay particular attention to your feelings and emotions. How do you feel? How does your body feel? And sometimes it takes a moment to get oriented and settle in. You might get immediate feedback, or it might take a few moments. Keep breathing and keep yourself open to the experience. What is different when you are residing in and looking at life from the perspective of your heart? As you are there, consider some of the themes of the heart chakra. Love, compassion, peace, self-acceptance, intimacy, community, relationship. Very good. Now, just for comparison, I'd like for you to move the ball of light, your consciousness, up into your head. Take a few seconds to do that. Pause in your headspace, seating yourself in this new perspective. And notice what changed in your perspective. How do you feel? What is different? How does this compare to being in your heart space? Does this location change how your entire body feels or parts of your body? Let your inner observer make notes and set your intention that you will remember whatever you need to remember about this experience. Now, complete with that exercise, moving your consciousness once again into your heart space. Invite it to stay there for a while. You can always move it elsewhere as it serves you. And take one final deep breath as we bring this to a conclusion. Slowly open your eyes and come back into present time. If this exercise inspired you and you'd like to further explore living from your heart space, I created a guided meditation called How to Make Decisions with Your Heart, available for purchase and download on my website. As was pointed out in the movie Moneyball, the first guy through the wall always gets bloody. Empaths were a rarity a century ago, and even 50 years ago, we were still highly uncommon. For the first wave of empaths incarnating on this planet, we are definitely getting bloodied. But at a soul level, we chose this as part of our human mission. Remember, we came here as groundbreakers, way showers, pioneers, in order to pave the way for the newly incoming souls and for the current souls choosing to wake up. Don't let outer appearances dissuade you. The time of the empath has arrived, and you are uniquely configured to help humanity ascend to this next level of heart-centered consciousness. Okay, friends, it's time for this week's self-care tip. Smudging is a standard energy clearing practice. It is an oldie but goodie. Smudging involves lighting something, such as sage, sweetgrass, or Palo Santo, and wafting the smoke over your body and energy field. The wafting is usually accomplished with a smudge fan, sometimes called a feather fan, or just a single feather. If you don't have any of those items, you can burn in a fireproof container, such as a ceramic bowl or abalone shell, and just move the container around, or use your hand to waft the smoke. Smudging is an ancient practice used by many indigenous cultures to clear dense and disharmonious energies and to invite in supportive and high-vibrating frequencies. Each member of the plant kingdom has a slightly different smell, vibration, and focus. White sage is the most common, and I'll just let you know, don't burn sage that you use in your kitchen. It doesn't smell the same at all. Make sure that you get white sage. You can also commonly find sweetgrass, cedar, and sometimes a combination of 2 or 3 of these. Palo Santo is a wood from South America that is considered sacred. And there are an endless amount of herbs and other grasses you can use if you want to get creative. Play with what you have, or purchase something new if you feel called. Your mission is to smudge yourself every day. As a bonus, consider smudging your office, bedroom, or entire home. If your spouse or kids are amenable, invite them to participate. Smudge them. Experiment with it, and be sure to pay attention to how you and your space feel afterwards. And I invite you to post your comments and experiences about it on my Facebook page. Okay, my fellow sensitives, thanks so much for tuning in today. Next week, our topic is energy. And this is a big, big subject, so I'll be focusing on what I call your energy container. Specifically, what it is, how it functions, what happens when we interact with others, and give you practices for solidifying and maintaining and building your edges. I'm Stephanie Redfeather, and if you want to find out more about me, my upcoming book, The Evolutionary Empath, or any of my other products and services, go to my website at bluestartemple.org. You can find me also on Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you like this podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast. Remember, my fellow sensitive souls, you are an evolutionary empath. The world needs your gifts.